We've got a couple of months before spring break hits hardcore. In advance of it, let's find out about the frame of mind of students thinking about going on spring break. And so, University of Washington scientists led by Deborah Kaysen wrote an article. It's going to appear in Prevention Science, so feel free to read it when your issue gets delivered to your door. They wrote an article called Sex on the Beach, the Influence of Social Norms and Trip Companions on Spring Break Sexual Behavior. Let's shorten it for you. Basically, the idea is that they ask college students about their views of engaging in casual sex on spring break, drinking before sex, and things like that, and they found, I guess not surprisingly, that most college students think that people are doing all of that stuff more than they are. And so they think, man, I just can't have any fun, but all of my friends are doing casual sex, they're drinking and hooking up, and things like that. I've got a few thoughts about this, but Chelsea, what do you think about the study?
Okay, so I think this is really interesting. I think people associate spring break with like kind of going crazy. You know, like it's time to drink, it's time to party,
go wild.
It's getting warm, you know, and I also think that the media distorts or creates this conception of what spring break is. I mean, think about all of the shows, Spring Breakers, and the movie that just came out. Like, there's a lot of crazy stuff that goes on spring break. So you have this already, you know, conceptualized image of spring break, and then all of your friends have these amazing stories. So I feel like there's a lot of pressure on you to kind of have great stories of your own.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Whether you do or not.
But that doesn't mean you have to do it. Just make them up. That's way faster. And you'll save money on planes.
Yeah.
But so you brought up like that people think they have to engage in this stuff, and the researchers actually found, and this is perhaps the most interesting outcome of this, is that believing that other people are having more casual sex than you and that they're drinking and hooking up and that sort of thing, they found actually leads to doing it more. And I think that this is interesting because I've noticed just in this workplace, some of the guys they're not in college anymore, and they think back on their time in college and they think, man, like people were just hooking up so much more than me. And I don't think that this is limited to this study. I think everybody thinks everybody else is having a better time than they are. Especially now that we have Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and stuff like that, where every time somebody is on a boat, they're snapping pictures of it. It makes you think that everybody's constantly on boats, and I'm not on a boat. So what's wrong with me?
Especially a study amongst young girls show the influence that social media has on their perception of their life, if they're having enough fun, and also like the depression level amongst young girls, because they see other girls having great times doing whatever, and they're like, oh, that person has an amazing life. And it's kind of like, so social media helps you to just distort perfection and beauty too, because think of how many times you've edited a picture, and you're not going to post an ugly picture of yourself. You know? You're
wrong. I actually did. So I'm going to tell that anecdote right now.
Well, that's
so
you.
You're totally right about
Girls
that study.
don't.
That study was totally interesting, and you're right. The problem is you see your life, you see the highs and you see the lows, but you only see the best takes of everyone else's life. So bear that in mind when you're browsing Facebook. So I decided to be proactive. I was testing a wide-angle lens, and I took a photo of myself, and I looked like a hot mess. And so what I did was I took it and I increased the contrast, I black and whited it, and every imperfection was like 5 times more visible, and I posted that to Instagram. So feel free to head to my Instagram at Jaidarola. And I think that being willing to see yourself publicly in a negative light makes it, for me, a lot easier to then face negative comments that come my way and stuff like that. Because what did Tyrion say in Game of Thrones? Use your weakness as armor and it can never be used against you, or something like that.
Yeah, well, I
watch Game of Thrones. He'll explain it better than I did.
I always give girls kudos for taking the 30-day no makeup challenge. So like every day they post a picture of themselves with no makeup. That's empowering.
I didn't ever heard that before. That's interesting.
It's, I mean, amazing that girls are, you know, confident enough to do that, whether you edit it a little bit or not. But still, I mean, social media definitely helps us to distort reality. I think reality television does that as well. So it's, again, like, you know, not reading into too much. You know, not reading too much into things. And also, I don't want to sound like too Buddha, but like feeling, you know, having you like being okay with your own center, like being at peace with yourself.
Okay. She sounded Buddha as hell right there.
Yeah,
I'm joking. So, like, let's reflect for a second, go down to the comments and let me know if you are a good example of what they were talking about in this study. Do you find yourself thinking that everyone else is having a better time than you are?